I think I'm gonna start us at 6:35 for a small group today. We were waiting for potential counselor, Smallwood. So, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you coming out on Wednesday evening. I know it's never easy, so there's a lot of work. Tonight is an opportunity to go over a very draft vision statement that we worked really hard on for the last couple of months, putting together based on all of your input from the last meeting, as well as all the work that we've done in the last 7 months or so. So this is going to be kind of your first look at it and kind of an opportunity for us to walk through it and talk about it tonight. It won't be the last time you see it or work through it. My hope is that again next time in November, we'll have even more fodder to think through the vision statement based on some outreach that I'm going to explain what's coming up, and then start thinking about what are some key goal concepts that can kind of help move this vision statement further and set us up for policy development next year. So that's kind of our roadmap, but I may have done ahead of myself, and I'll start with just an agenda for the evening. Sorry. This, yes. Yeah. So as I mentioned, quick recap, some updates, and then really the bulk of the meeting is to review the draft vision statement, have an open conversation about it, discussion about it, and then we'll be here to share some information about the event happening next month. So we'll all very well. So we can talk about what that is and what. So that is this evening, and then of course it's all right. So just quick recap of project overview. I kind of like including these slides at the very beginning. We've seen them before, but it's just helpful to think about where we are and where we're going. Vision and comp plan process. The first key questions we start out with is where are we now and where do we want to go? And then we move into developing goals and policies. So how do we get there? And then that turns into the comprehensive document, which is essentially a compilation of all of that work. So we are at our 2050 vision, moving into goals and policies. So we're just in that transition period. Once again, so sorry, this is small. I feel like this is a really great graphic of the schedule and probably is more helpful than not if there's time taken to study it. But as you see the big green blob, clearly the community visioning process took up a lot of time and energy and effort since essentially what was it, March, I think is when we kicked this off. And then, as you all know, there's been a lot of technical work going on in the background, a lot of data collection and analysis to help inform some technical reports that the city is undertaking, which includes an economic opportunities analysis and which was passed by City Council, the housing needs analysis. So thank you to anyone who's submitted feedback or comments to share with City Council and Planning Commission regarding amending the budget to include housing needs analysis. And these are all technical documents that all communities prepare, and they are great for understanding key trends and forecasts for housing need, employment forecasts, etc. So that kind of data is really going to help inform the development of our policies. So that's why they're really great and important documents, and clearly that's what a lot of the work is involved in the background. It's pieces of information. I am hoping at some point to have there's a couple of other firms that are working on these pieces, but at our CAC meetings, likely early January next year, potentially having someone who come and just share some of the key data trends that came from the EOA and that came from the HMA, especially when we do start having CAC meetings around the topics of housing and economy. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about what those reports are showing and help ground us in these concepts for policies. And so, yeah, that all leads up into the comprehensive plan update, which we're going to kick off in January with my very rigorous timeline of trying to work through development of policies for all of these chapters until June. So I'm going to talk a little bit more later this year about just how the process is gonna work in terms of how we're gonna work through each of the areas. And then it's gonna essentially be ready for adoption and go into the adoption proceedings, which will include a ton of work sessions and hopefully not very many hearings, but a number of hearings with planning committee, city council. And yes, yet another opportunity for CEC to really support at those hearings. We'll definitely talk more about what that looks like. And then as you see on the bottom, those little orange circles, we do have some key touch points with the community around first the visioning process. So that's open house number 1 under the fall line. And then we will have 3 more rounds of outreach to the community, whether it's a standalone event or some sort of interactive online component, something where we can report back on the policy concept development for each of those blocks of, or each of those topic areas. And we're going to be working through them in groups of 2. So yeah, that's going to be happening all of next winter, spring, and then in addition, just to elevate the conversation around natural hazards and the topic of wildfires and Sandy, we are going to be doing a more kind of focused outreach around natural hazards through 2 workshops with some kind of selected stakeholders that represent a variety of different systems, whether it be economic, cultural, utilities, folks that have expertise in different particular systems to start talking about just natural hazards, planning and mitigation, and just the effect of changing climate. So there are 2 workshops built into this process to kind of start fleshing out some concepts for policy language for that section. And we will have more information about that first stakeholder workshop. It's likely going to be in November. It is an invite-only workshop, but the CAC is actually a very specific invite to that workshop. So we are, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to sort itself out, but we would really enjoy CAC support and attendance of workshops if you are able and would like to attend. It is going to be facilitated by someone from the GEOS Institute, who's another firm that's working on this project with us, who's kind of bringing the climate lens to this project. So it's gonna be a really interesting kind of event. I think it's gonna be an all-day workshop or like a 9 to 2 or 10 to 3 sort of thing. And it's gonna be breakout rooms. There's gonna be a lot going on, and it's gonna be, kind of geared towards engagement around some big questions. And hopefully a really diverse room of people with a lot of different expertise, technical expertise as well. So we will provide more information about that, but we will certainly get into that workshop in November. We would really love for this to see some of it.
Were those on here before?
They were.
Okay.
Yeah,
It just seems so timely with like the PDE shut off and power and like the wildfires. I was like,
it's kind of the first time that I maybe like walked through the schedule really succinctly.
yeah, well, now I have something in my mind where it feels very tangible in terms of like.
100%. Yeah, the month. And so the first workshop in the fall is actually kind of meant to come at this time when we have this draft vision statement. And we have kind of a vision for how we want to approach natural hazards and resiliency in the community. So that workshop is going to be kind of geared towards responding to that vision statement that we're developing through this process, and then having just a much more nuanced and detailed conversation about priorities or goals. And then when we have the second one, which will likely be next March, so same group of folks, same group of stakeholders are going to come back together for a second all-day workshop. That's where they're going to be basically identifying policy concepts for natural hazards and resiliency. So yeah, that has been kind of the plan the whole kind of way along. But yeah, my apologies if I clarify that with your notes. We just started
like a curiosity.
Yeah. We just started kind of delving into the details and logistics of this workshop and who's coming and what we're going to do with it. So yeah, more information soon on that.
And is that first open house, is that next Wednesday?
Yes. Yeah, so open house number 1 is essentially Future Fest. Yes. And then when I say open house 2, 3, and 4, I'm using the term open house very loosely. They very well might not be open houses. One might be an open house, one might be online interactive activity. Like it might be a variety of different things based on kind of where we are with the content. But essentially there's just like 3 major touch points with community between January and June of next year. That's going to kind of mirror the times that we meet as well as CAC. So yeah, we're just going to be kind of doing an iterative process with the all right, any like working screens here? Any questions about process or? Okay, so draft vision statement, it is included in your packets. And I guess, you know, I should have added some slides here, but I did want to just maybe verbalize a bit about, just remind us all like where this came from. Not only do you know about all the outreach that was done through online surveys, through all the community conversations, through the events that we were at, you saw those big spreadsheets of comments. We talked about some of the key themes at the last meeting that were rising up through all of that feedback. And then as a group last time we met, we also started identifying statements that reflect what we've been listening, what we've been hearing, and that could be included in the vision statement. So we came up with something that amounts to just about like a 1-page front and back, so 2 pages. And it's about a paragraph, which are the 6 topic areas. And that is going to be essentially the framework or the foundation for all the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan for each of those topic areas. The comprehensive plan is generally organized by what we call statewide planning goals, not necessarily by topic areas, but there has been kind of a shift of communities moving towards talking about these big topic areas in our comp plan versus just trying to check off statewide planning goals. So next time we come together, I actually want to pull together like a little table or matrix that just shows you what are all the statewide planning goals that a comprehensive plan has to address, and then where are they, like what topic area would they be relevant to, and that will be a component of the comp plan as well, so we can understand, all right, you know, goal 10 housing is going to be found in this topic area or chapter or block, however, whatever nomenclature. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of walk through the vision statement. I'm happy to read it out loud slowly. And then I'm happy to just kind of take down any comments and reflections that you might have on this, and then also talk about kind of what our next steps are, where it's going. Sound good? All right, so we started with community and culture. And every kind of every paragraph starts with in 2050, so kind of trying to set the stage. In 2050, Sandy retains its small town feel through its celebration of community and place. Downtown Sandy is a clean, walkable, and vibrant place to dine, shop, and gather. The beautification of downtown showcases public art, honors Sandy's history, and celebrates its location as the gateway to Mount Hood. Public amenities and facilities provide places to play, grow, and learn for residents of all ages. Sandy supports events like the Sandy Mountain Festival that bring people together and promote a spirit of inclusivity. Nonprofit and volunteer organizations offer meaningful services to the community and provide opportunities for civic engagement. Governance and growth management is the second. In 2050, Sandy is proactive in managing and planning for growth. Sandy is an innovative community that addresses change, thoughtful planning, and effective governance. Growth and development are guided by community values, fiscal responsibility, and strategic investments. Chapter: Premier Fire, Police, and Emergency Response Services and regulatory tools and practices are consistently updated to address new issues, and new development contributes to the expansion of public utilities. Leadership and residents engage with one another in decision processes. So new opportunities benefit the community while preserving the city's And I have a couple notes here in my presentation about, there's some key kind of lines or statements or words that were used purposefully. And some, for example, the very first line is a council goal currently. So there are kind of multiple layers here of pulling in some content from goal setting by the city council. And then also, I forgot to mention this earlier, but in reviewing the goals and policies for things like your new parks and trails master plan, the transit master plan, things like that. So there are some kind of, the vision statement is also trying to pull in some work that has been done in other planning processes as well. So I'll flag those examples when we get there. The next is parks, trails, and natural resources. In 2050, Sandy's natural and scenic landscape is an extension of the community. Green rivers, healthy trees, and wildlife habitats are carefully preserved to promote biodiversity. Forested areas within the city are protected as parks, trails, and natural open space. Sandy preserves the character and charm of beloved assets like Miami Memorial Park, Tickle Creek Trail, and how do you say that? Johnson's. Okay. The city continues to develop recreation programs and a diverse, accessible park and trail system that is clean, safe, and functional, serving the needs of residents. So I will say that the last two sentences come directly from the new 2022 Parks and Trails Master Plan vision. So this is us kind of pulling in existing vision statements from other efforts. The next. Natural hazards and resiliency. In 2050, Sandy is resilient in the face of natural hazards. As stewards of clean air, water, and land resources for future generations, Sandy guides the design of the built environment to protect, enhance, and be integrated with natural systems. The threat of wildfire is mitigated through emergency preparedness, education, and proactive planning. Sandy collaborates with local agencies, including fire districts, Clackamas County, and regional partners to plan for actions that can lessen the impact of natural hazards, ensure the city and its partners have long-term strategies for so this is also another example of the last sentence coming from the Clackamas County Natural Hazards and Mitigation Plan. And then also there's some language around emergency preparedness, proactive planning that we're receiving as well. Clean air and water and land resources, same that as first line. FYI, that is kind of to goal 5, clean air, water, and land resources. So just kind of calling that out where we can as well. Housing and economy. So in 2050, Sandy is home to desirable neighborhoods and a strong workforce. Thriving commercial and industrial districts provide balanced employment opportunities at all levels. A variety of businesses meet the daily needs of residents, contribute to city's place. Strong tourism industry provides opportunities for businesses and supports the local economy. Sandy's workers have access to a variety of housing choices that allow residents to move in, move up, or age in place, ensuring families can live, work, and thrive in Sandy across multiple generations. Balanced housing choices contribute to safe, walkable, family-friendly neighborhoods that connect residents to nearby parks, trails, businesses, and institutions. I will say the only thing I have to say here is the line to move in and move up was a request from council. Curious?
Yes. And the word affordable. So I feel like the term affordable was one that was really common.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I can sense it in there, but I
Yeah.
can't like see that word.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great point. I think, yeah. I feel like that would be a really interesting thing to explore in further conversations next at Future Fest and see if that kind of sticks. I know that there's also this, but if that's a really important concept, then that should definitely.
but I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, so city council did take up pass at reviewing this draft before it became public. Future pass next week. So they did provide some comments. I don't recall if had, but I do, their comments were really trying to see the concept of balance, housing, balance of plans.
That's affordable kind of relative. What's affordable to somebody who's fairly affordable.
Balance is better.
No,
but I agree, I
agree,
I appreciate that, and this stands when I'm writing.
Yeah.
And there's also something that we said about, there's the term affordable with capital A and then affordable with lowercase a. Usually, there's sometimes things, affordable with capital letter where it refers primarily to Section 8 housing. But then the term affordable is also used loosely to just describe a relevancy of cost of housing. So yeah, that is, I think, can be a little bit of a tricky term for some folks. People like, are you? Yeah.
Is that the political sensitivity? I was gonna ask with that.
Well, also affordable.
I would say Shelley, you might have a better sense. So there's like, we kind of talk about like lowercase a affordable housing and capital A affordable housing, like that there are different definitions of affordable housing depending on the context in which you're talking. I think we're trying to get at that when we say balanced housing choices, a variety of housing choices, right? So we get at that fact that affordability is relative, right? Yeah.
I think the question was, is that kind of a sensitive topic?
I mean, when you talk about affordable housing, it's always politically sensitive, right? Because
Say something.
because
I'm aware of issues around it, but I
Yeah.
just like, no.
yeah, some people hear affordable and they think, oh, Section 8, publicly subsidized, that kind of housing.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
when you say.
And I guess I'm still not. That sounds bad.
Yeah,
Right.
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 I think what sounds bad is sometimes the idea of affordability relates to the idea of building more apartment complexes.
Oh.
And it relates to, oh my goodness, affordability means it's like building so much housing. Ton more people, ton more housing, ton more crime. It's like a whole, it's,
Okay, the attachment.
or there's
Okay.
it's the attachment, yeah.
There's a difference between looking at what your needs of your community are versus, and that's those lines blur and.
Yeah.
And that's right, yes, saying that, what was it balanced, what are the words they use there, the.
Balanced employment opportunities at all levels. Yeah.
Leaves
So,
room for that, which
it
is
certainly
vision
does.
statement should.
Yeah, I think the vision, as a reminder, it's very, very high level, but I do agree that saying, this is kind of actually a pretty common term now that cities are adopting when they're talking about housing. Instead of saying affordable housing, you say a variety of housing choices. And that just like opens the door for a lot of different kind of policy directions for how to achieve that and what that means. So. But I appreciate that comment a lot. Thanks for the attention. Yeah. This is wonderful. Yeah, so we can talk more about all of these. I'll finish up here. The last one is transportation. So in 2050, Sandy boasts modern and reliable public facilities and services that support carefully planned growth. The city invests in infrastructure that provides clean drinking water, treats wastewater while protecting our watersheds, and mitigates the effects of stormwater runoff. The expansion, operation, and maintenance of public services is supported through sustainable and balanced funding sources. SandyNet continues to provide reliable and fast internet service to the city's residents. Sandy's transportation system prioritizes safety, connectivity, and accessibility with an emphasis on local street connections to reduce reliance on arterial roads such as Highway 26 and 211 for local trips. Safe, efficient, high-quality transit service, as well as a network of sidewalks and bike facilities, provides an alternative to private automobile use, support efficient use of roadways. So the line about Sandy Net, I mean, very clear feedback. For our outreach.
Everybody
Everybody
loves internet.
but it's also council goal. So claims that, the second to last line about highways 26 and 211 is a goal statement that comes directly from the transportation systems plan that is currently being done alongside this process. So it's kind of another opportunity to align for consistency. And then the last line about transit is a goal, or actually it's essentially the transit master plan vision statement. So we incorporated that one as well. Yeah, so that's how it reads as I was reading it out loud, which is always helpful. I've never done that before. I did notice there was one very well-known sentence. Very fine. From that as part of it. Yeah, so I think my question to all of you is, you know, do you feel, and we can walk through these each, but do we feel like these capture kind of the major concepts that we've heard? Are there any kind of things that we should be thinking about when revising this vision statement? Are there any interesting questions or things that you might be curious to hear from me about? I'm thinking about the Future Fest event next week, and I'm thinking about things like affordable housing. And yeah, are there any kind of questions that you have or things that you would want to like talk about more?
I think community and culture, like ultimately, I like that we're talking about figuring out ways to talk about history in an inclusive way, because a lot of the art that is currently in the city is not inclusive to the history.
Yeah.
So bringing that into, you know, I mean, I have personal ties with the museum who are actually working on better programs that are more inclusive.
Yeah.
But because inclusivity is in that statement, I just think obviously I would go for that to get across the whole statement.
I think that came directly from a statement that one of you created at the last CC. The spirit of inclusivity.
And this is a tangent for sure, but the choices of our school district. Social studies isn't really being taught, so I think the city needs to
Yeah.
come to the plate.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important one. And like I said, even the language that starts bringing that to the forefront.
You know, yeah, absolutely. Community and culture is kind of an interesting topic to incorporate into comprehensive plans, because the only the only goal that is really relevant to is statewide planning goal 1, which is community engagement. But it's so clear that topics of community and culture kind of permeate all aspects of livability, regardless of whether or not it's land use or not. So I will say, I like that this one comes first and it kind of like sets the stage, and not that any of these topic areas are set in any sort of order of prioritization by any means. But I do feel like having this first kind of sets the stage. I think we will find as we start kind of fleshing out some goal statements and some policy statements, that there, you know, a comprehensive plan is very land use based. And there's a lot of more programmatic elements when talking about community and culture. So there will be some interesting kind of policy development around, you know, what the city can do to encourage, you know, sentiments that are expressed here. But then there will likely be a lot of just discussion of partnerships and, you know, supporting organizations and things like that, that as a city entity, as a city government, one can do. That might not be place-based or land use based, but there is some sort of like, some sort of programmatic element that has that is somewhat land use based, that can be incorporated into the comments. So, it's not a prize, that's always a much softer topic.
One like word that came up when I was reading this one to me was accessibility. And I wonder if this, and I was like gonna flip through like
Yeah.
the comments here and be like, was there call outs for accessibility? And I don't really remember.
Yeah, there
Um,
was, but yeah, I'm sorry,
Is that a space where that could be considered to be included, or would that be?
so accessibility, we do talk about it in the transportation section specifically.
Okay.
The transportation system prioritizes safety, connectivity, and accessibility. And then we also talk about a network of sidewalks. Yeah, I mean, yes, the topic of accessibility is very prevalent in the transportation systems plan. There's a whole segment they've already developed kind of some broad goal statements for a variety of like kind of sub areas. And one of them is accessibility. And that talks about everything from ADA curb ramps to connected sidewalks. But yeah.
I guess that's what I was thinking.
That
whole
makes
topic
sense.
is like,
That makes sense.
it's wild, like when you dive into it, and it's, a lot of cities actually have it improved current accessibility because it would require just a massive budget, like Gresham has done it.
In terms of like ADA curb ramps or what other types of
Curb
ramps?
ramps, but just as simple as paint lines on.
Yeah,
street,
yeah.
For like, street parking and stuff like that. Where I mean, you just think it's like an easy fix, but then like. City planning codes and all of that, you have to bring it up to current code. So then you're diving, I mean,
Yeah.
just anything with the city, you're just like, oh, this isn't as easy as I just like
Yeah.
thought it would be.
Right, and then it also depends on who owns the roadway.
Yeah.
Is this the county or the city?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sandy, that our roadways are. ODOT.
Yeah.
You look at community engagement stuff.
I don't think a lot of stuff. Kind of, I mean, their accessibility is also more than just ADA curb ramps. It is also, producing documents that are accessible to blind, like things like that. Are there other elements of accessibility that you kind of have heard through our feedback or that you think might be relevant in other ways?
Childcare, I think I remember hearing childcare.
About that.
Yeah,
That is actually, yeah. It's a
like preschool, it's really hard to,
Yeah.
and it's the ones that you do find are really expensive.
Yeah.
Things.
Yeah, that is tricky so thinking about what the city's role is in childcare, is interesting. It would be really interesting to know if there are any innovative examples of addressing childcare needs, through city entities or through municipal governance. Yeah.
Is that kind of thing count in the, I feel like Hood River did it, like a local one, where they create a currency and it's like, if I can fix your sink, then you pay me in city bucks. And then so that you can use those to like, if you're open for childcare or rides or things like that, there's a lot of places in the northeast. that do
Yeah,
that
also
too.
Ashland, I think they had kind of a city like token.
Yeah, that it's services that you provide, so there's no real cash exchange, but you can drop off meals, check on grandmas, look after kids, get
Yeah.
people rides.
Based program. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is, I have seen the issue of childcare be something that is very consistently brought up in the community. But then in terms of it being an issue that the city feels like it is equipped to help solve, is a little tricky. Unless there are like city buildings that are used for such spaces, but even the school district is not at all, like the city can work with the school district. Yeah, similar things like how, comprehensive plan is this.
I think ultimately, then a lot of these other things tie into it because creating a livability where people can work and live in
Yeah.
their city
Yeah.
cuts down on that childcare issue because people are currently, commuting often an hour to where their place of work is. So that's an hour in the morning, an hour in the
Absolutely.
afternoon,
Yeah.
where if you're meeting the needs in other ways, like.
Yeah, so that could look like, a goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Down the line.
So that could
Like,
like.
trying to get people to be able to stay here is like cool, and then as part of that, it's like. Childcare. Yeah, local and.
So that the dominoes falling, they're kind of like.
So we're thinking about, you know, we come back and we start identifying goal statement. Many steps. When we start identifying goal statements for community culture, so there is one line here about public amenities and facilities provide places to play, grow, and learn for residents of all ages. So there could certainly be kind of a goal statement around that statement specifically, and that's where we can start talking about services, you know, activity, like the city supporting programs and activities.
Recreation.
Yeah, recreation programs, the aquatic center is a big one. You know, that, we didn't call it out in this one. But, like, an example of.
I'm surprised it didn't make it.
So, but it may very well be a policy, you know, about like. You know, identify funding and support the development of aquatics, like that could be, you know, that could be an example of how we get to there from something like this.
Yeah, that's kind of like the fun part, to like.
Yeah, and it requires a lot of balancing of like,
We're getting like the hour.
it's gonna also require the balancing of a lot of different inputs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technical work and city-led work around what these things mean. And so we're gonna be like doing the work of putting that in with all of your feedback and other, you know, and then community priorities. So it's gonna be an interesting balancing act when we get there. Okay, anything else around community culture? I guess any of the other statements?
I just backing up a bit, I have to admit a little bit educated for me. When we talked about the vision statement, just my background with corporate or nonprofits that have a vision statement, it's one statement, so I kind of flipped this over, expecting to see a vision statement. And I thought, okay, Jerry, you gotta kind of adjust things here. And then in my mind, I drew the parallel to, and I would never call it vision statements, to where, you know, something happens and a person comes to the microphone, to the podium to make a statement. And it's never a statement, you know, so I had to expand my definition of the word statement. Which, and I always say that because there may be others who kind of feel the same way. They're looking for this.
Yeah.
Is one thing. But
Yeah.
a couple other things that it's used in the community and culture, and then some other places, I forget where. The small town feel. We hear that all the time at a planning commission. I have never had anybody tell me what it is. Is that, I mean, what is
Small town feel.
a small town feel? Is it one of those things where you say, I really don't know what it is, but I know what it isn't, kind of thing, you know?
Probably.
Because I just hear that all the time and I don't know what that means. Does that mean that there's only 20 people around you, you know? Is it, yeah, is it the population size? What is it? So it's used a couple places here. And I think it,
I think it kind of like encapsulates more than just one area though. It's small town feel could be community and culture, it could be, you know, housing and economy, it could be transportation. It's more of like a culture, I guess, I would say. I'm from metropolitan Phoenix, Arizona, so I could say that a small town feel is probably like one of those places where, you know, people, they mind their own business, but they don't mind their own business. I don't know if that's relevant, but.
It's definitely
Yeah, but
relative
it's-
to like what. Everybody envisions like what their small town feel, like I'm sure all of us would have something different. Symbolic to what that actually means, like small town feel to me is like. Not necessarily that I'm surrounded by a small town, but more a community aspect where it's a give and take, the art relationship. Look out for each other. Help each other. And that's what small town,
Yeah.
me personally.
I think it would be important to kind of get a handle on that, because at what point in population growth is it literally impossible to have a small town feel?
Or is it without focus,
Or-
without, there would be a tipping point, I would imagine, like, I'm not a worker bee, but like, when you think of when it has to be the focus to neighborhoods in some way that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's that, I mean, it's a biological concept too, like, what's that point of where you get too much, where you can't get the whole volume, so now you've got to break the volume down.
Yeah, and then maybe I think my daughter. and
Yeah.
Son in Chicago, and Chicago was made up of 91 or something communities. And they all have names. And so you know which community you're in. So is it possible to maintain small town feel within, 10 million people? I think those
Doing
are,
that, I feel like if that's a vision statement goal, then as Sandy grows, then the idea is can you start incentivizing in some way in action those boroughs,
Yeah.
neighborhoods, where.
Yeah, maybe Sandy starts naming its neighborhoods.
yeah,
Kind of
and some of them,
But like in a
some
more
of them
formalized
are,
way,
the developments are,
right?
like I live in Nova Estates, nobody in Sandy knows where Nova Estates
But
is,
maybe
because
that's,
it was developed 50 years ago on a plat map.
yeah, I would say, small town feel, as you just said, is ubiquitous. Everyone is, first thing people say.
We don't want to
And
live
my
in Morrow.
theory, that small town is. And people reflect on the relationships they have, the people they know, in the places they live. And so when you start thinking about, well, what does that mean in the context of the built environment? If the importance is on relationships and knowing your barista and knowing your neighbor, then how do we build communities where our behavior or like our way of life lends to that sort of connectedness? And maybe it's a bunch of things. Maybe it's creating walkable neighborhoods, variety of housing choices. There's lots of different types of people. Maybe it's having city services or a city put on like lots of different events and festivals, celebrations. It's all these kind of programmatic things, but then also thinking about how do we affect the built environment to kind of elevate this sense of connectedness or togetherness. And so I think that small town feel, like, we talk about it because we want to talk about our relationships more than anything.
I wonder if it'd be possible, this may be more of a council thing, people. That just makes sense up here. To identify maybe 10, 5, 10, 7 elements that make a small town feeling. And then say, we will do whatever we can to preserve those regardless of the size of Sandy. Whether it be 20,000 or 200,000.
And that makes me think in the classroom, when the two things that I cringe every time I say it. Or I'm thinking it, this is really important, gotta pay attention. I'm like, okay, we're done. We're like, any questions? It's like, okay, that's stupid, of course I'm not gonna ask, but because that sounds so awesome, but how do you get it moving? Which makes me think
But I
of
feel like
Future
we heard-
Fest.
We heard about things like, I think about what are those, like, people say small town feel, but what are the other things people are also saying? Public art in downtown, the flower baskets, these little things that feel kind of innocuous, but they're like, oh, there's a sense of place that comes from seeing this mural or knowing that there is really lovely flowers down Main Street and knowing my neighbor. All of those things together create this sense for me. And I think that there are some aspects in this paragraph that kind of showcases what those other elements were. Public art, Sandy's history, celebrates its location, Sandy Mountain Festival, volunteer organizations, nonprofits, things like that.
It's interesting, a lot of people talk about wanting that small, and I moved, how many times have we heard, I moved to Sandy because of the small town feel. I had a dime for every time I heard that in planning commission. But, where were they going with that? everybody feels that way. But, I lost my thought. It'll come back.
We'll be here.
I was gonna say, you know, like ultimately that is also encompassed in all of this that I'm trying, like, I like to tie things in where when it stops feeling like a small town, there's an imbalance somewhere. So like growth without infrastructure or irresponsible growth or irresponsible, you know, roadways, that sort of thing start to make the accessibility, the inclusive down in my head. You know, I own a business in Gresham and I'm very active in Gresham government because I own a business in Gresham, and people still in Gresham say it still feels like a small town. Because there are aspects of Gresham that have these kind of community-centric like conversations, and they're in their comprehensive plan right now, they're really trying to like reel people in and bridge the gaps between like Rockwood and. I know this is like totally different, but kind of bringing the perspective everyone can. I appreciate you brought that up because everybody does have a different vision of what small town actually is.
I know what my thought was people that we hear at planning commission is I like the small town feeling. Normally when they mention that, it is in resistance to more people.
Yeah.
And
I was the last one in, and I wanted.
but the thing is that to maintain the relationships that emphasize the small town feeling takes work. And it's probably is typically, I assume within the city, it's 20% of the people are doing all the work. And so there's a vast majority who say, I like the small town feeling, but they're not willing to put the effort in to maintain those relationships and doing it. Anyway, the other
The
thing,
capacity that sometimes we set up the system, it's kind of like the brain, when we say like, oh, you only use 10% of it. Yeah, because if you use more, you burn it up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good. So like 50% of the people were doing the work. If it isn't coordinated in a certain way, then it's just chaos and mayhem.
I don't even think that about democracy.
Yeah, I mean, that is the true challenge of democracy. You have to have those infrastructures, or you either get too much or too little. It's so hard to get that balance. And I mean, you guys that are doing the work for all of us, you're feeling it too. But how do you help us help ourselves get involved?
I am loving this conversation and it is so timely because in October, and in ACU, we're going to be presenting at a conference, the Oregon chapter of the American Planning Association. We're presenting with a team working on planning in North Plains about what it means to be a small town that's growing. And Sandy's piece, our piece is specifically what you were suggesting, which is what does it mean? What does small town feel mean? Is it possible to maintain a small town feel in the context of growth? And what is the role of government, of a city government with planning and policy and facilitating that small town feel?
So tune in, because Shelley's gonna answer all of those questions.
Yeah, so I love these conversations. This is such an abstract concept because, I mean, you could use census definitions that at this many people, you become an urbanized place, and at this many people, you become an MSA. But that doesn't really seem to capture what it is we're talking about when we talk about living in a small town. I also had an interesting experience recently where I was walking around here and this guy in a truck pulled up and asked me directions, and he was confused about where he was going, and it sounded like he was from like a very rural area. And he said, I hate driving in the city. And Sandy is the city, it's the big city. And so it is just this really abstract relative concept. And yeah, kind of what I'm finding in my research on this and I'm listening to people is what it comes down to is a sense of community and a sense of relationships, a sense of being able to depend on the people that you live around. And this collective identity of a place, that it isn't just about I live in a small town, but it's we live in a small town, right? That sense of community is fundamental to that. So that's like this big topic that I've been thinking a ton about recently is how do we keep that, right? How, in the context of getting all of these development applications and all of these, landowners wanting to develop their land, how do we maintain and how do we facilitate? How do we protect that small town feel?
Yeah, how does it translate into what gets built?
Yeah.
That's the crux. It's like, what do relationships look like in built form? Is it cohesive ways to do it?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I had one other thing. Somebody help me on the parks, trails and natural resources.
Yeah.
The bold statement. When we first read it, 2050, Sandy's natural and scenic landscape is an extension of the community. I'm losing that. How it's an extension of the community. That use of that word is, I'm hung up on it. I'm not sure what it means.
Yeah, maybe into, or
Yeah,
maybe that would be a better way of saying it. Yeah. Definitely, we can, yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
Well, when I heard it, I actually had to think about it as well, because I did think it was. I love it, but what does it mean? It's like the idea of like built space doesn't have to be so different from natural space, so it's a coordinate, so like.
Integration.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And so when I read it, I pictured, the second time I read it, I pictured it as, you couldn't say, oh, now I'm in town, now I'm on the trail. It's more like a seamless.
It'd be like saying Sandy's natural scenic landscape is part and parcel to what Sandy is.
Yeah.
You use the word extension, like if you put an extension on a house, it's like stuck on. And
Right.
so that just threw me.
Yep.
I
No, that's a
understand
great integrated. I like that when you said integrated. that-
integrated. Yeah, see, that's really different than extension.
Yes, no, I appreciate that a lot. Let's definitely workshop that. Yeah, maybe using a different word or just a different way of expressing that idea of, integration.
So that what it would translate to is like, if you were talking about Sandy, you can't not talk about the natural scenic landscape.
Right.
Kind of moving the literal, like, dive.
That's
But that even like when I think of that, obviously not the built up and Sandy's not that big, but like how Singapore uses their green space and how they build it, like it makes me think of. Like when I see land being put to solar panels, it's like, no, we got parking lots for that. Can we have a forest there instead? It's things like that, that I would like to be part of, but I mean, I know why things go where they go.
Great, thank you, Jerry, for that feedback. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Integrated with natural systems is what I think, natural hazards.
They do say that, yeah. But we don't probably still that sentence can be probably worded so that it like better echoes the situation. Maybe without using the word integration again, or maybe we just do a little bit of wordsmithing, but.
When you think of parks, trails and natural resources, like connected is more like
Yeah.
that you could get from the natural spaces to the built spaces without. Google on a ride or something.
Certainly.
An example that comes to my mind, something that may disagree with. When I think of Bend, it's there. Maybe it's because when we're there, we're visiting grandkids or parks. But it's just like, it's in that same thought of parks and walkways and so forth. I don't think of that when I think of Gresham. Nothing against Gresham, but
Right.
there's just something about the way Bend has done whatever it's done that when I think of it, it's just, that is there in my thoughts,
Yeah.
just there.
Yeah.
That's what we'd like to see.
And pockets in Gresham, like the neighborhood I walked in this weekend where they've got the Japanese garden and it's attached to the Springwater Trail and you go up to the school park around the
A
corner.
lot
where
of
all that
community
soccer.
efforts went into that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And still, like. Main City Park was not that way. Yeah, so speed is transformation.
It made me think of you know, there, I know people are working on stuff like that in Sandy, and how do you put muscle behind it?
Yeah, because like I also lived in Bend, actually, for 4 years, and it's a very different place and people are like, you think Sandy's conversation is bad surrounding like growth. Bend is like so polarized in the way that they talk about growth and really the infrastructure isn't quite to the level of growth that they've had, but yeah, I love I take my kids still when we go visit to all the parks, because they're integrated throughout communities.
And there's like walkways,
Yes.
like the public space is not so truncated between
Yes.
private farmlands.
Yeah.
You have street trails that connect roadways to like random little trails along the river that then talk about a park, you know?
Yeah.
That go between houses. It's like, yeah, just like little things like that. It's definitely an example of integration.
Have you all seen or been to, driven through Market Village in Fairview, the neighborhood that's over there by Target? Yeah, it's a planned development, which meant that
Is that where the city chamber is?
Yeah.
Okay.
there's one developer who had all of this land and spent a ton of stuff. And one of the ways that they really were able to soften the feeling of density, right? Because you go to like a suburb and the houses are really close together and it just, something about it feels uncomfortable. But the way they were able to kind of soften that visual landscape was through a lot of like wild, natural environment,
Which is wow, because those houses are literally on top of each other,
Mhm, yeah.
but it feels like a cohesive comfortability, and it also has that part that literally takes you to the back of Target and you have no idea how.
Yeah, it has all those little pocket parks that are connected to trails and it goes through like very wild, untouched wooded areas. There's like streams back there and yeah, so the natural environment goes a long way in softening what a built environment is like.
That was Fairview Village.
Yeah.
That's-
the village,
It was used heavily on that and
Mm,
that and another community side. Yeah, because it was just getting going.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
okay, yeah, go ahead.
one more please about the Parks and Trail.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to visualize how this fits in, you know, our climate is wet and as a parent of a child who wants to play all the sports, we were literally only able to play a quarter of our season last year to the state of our parks. That is recreation. I'm just trying to figure out how, like, what that looks like as far as park use for, you know, like Bluff Park, like it was a like everything goes down right there. So yeah, we weren't able to like play. Baseball wasn't able to play because of the state of recreational zones. And there's really nowhere other than schools for kids to have like recreation surrounding more than just trails. If that makes sense, trying to.
Yeah, the city does have a brand new parks and
Yeah.
trails master plan.
Yeah.
That actually identifies common projects. So that probably would be the first place to look in terms of what is the prioritization of like things like that. You know, are there particular parks that have funding available or funding that can go towards them for maintenance, operation? But I hear you absolutely.
I'll email you a copy of the plan.
Yeah,
Got it done.
it might, yeah, it would be worth looking at, just seeing.
What, I know
what
some
states.
cities are looking at like turf. Installing more turf for like playability, but you can't just all rely on the same school system. District is so small, you know, like all those schools trying to intermingle has become, we're all fighting for this.
Yeah, but I think really the concept that we want to capture there is definitely opportunity. There were issues around operation existing parks. And that might be something we want to speak to. Anything else, 7:30, I kind of want to move us towards just talking about the Future Fest, but is there anything else we want to say or any comments about? Okay, we will see this again with some proposed edits to it next time we come together, based on this conversation and Future Fest. So let me. This one. Okay, Sandy Future Fest. So I do understand that Shelley sent out some media materials to all of you at the end of August to kind of share out to the extent that want to. So thank you for anyone that did do that or sent it among your own networks. But we're really looking forward to a super fun event next Wednesday evening. From 6 to 8:30 at the Whippersnappers Play Place, which I just went to go visit for the first time the other week. It looks super fun. It will be free entry for folks for kids. There will be free food, and then there will be additional food and booze to purchase as you wish at the bar. So yeah, the venue will be great. And essentially the purpose of just the activity or the evening is to do a lot of different things. It's to, of course, bring awareness to the comprehensive plan process. It's to kind of honor all the good work that was done through the outreach and engagement over the last 7 months. So reporting back to the community on where we went and what we heard. It's an opportunity to kind of unveil the draft vision statement and get a pulse with the community as to whether they think it's on the right track. And so, yeah, really vetting that draft vision statement, and then really starting to kind of move the needle a little bit further and identify what are the opportunities as a community for moving the needle or achieving that vision. So the way that it will be set up is there will be a number of, it's kind of going to be like an open house style, and there's just going to be stations around the room. There's going to be a welcome and registration table, and then Shelley's going to be manning kind of the first station, which is essentially some boards that kind of show the outreach we did, present those word clouds about what we love about Sandy, what we want to see in the future, and then kind of unveil the overall vision statement. So that's one station, and then the remainder of the stations is essentially the vision statement just kind of pulled out by topic area. And so there's one station per topic area. They will each be manned by city staff. There are different folks kind of with different backgrounds that are going to be at each of these stations. The vision statement will be a board. So as you see, I kind of put snippets of them up there. So that will be a board, and then every station will have a flip chart. And really the kind of the big question that we're asking is, how do we achieve this vision? How do we get there? So it's going to be kind of a pretty free form, open-ended conversation that we're hoping that whoever is manning the station can kind of engage with and take notes of. It's going to be a lot of just brainstorming, noting down big ideas, identifying if there's kind of commonalities, if there's a lot of folks that agree with an idea or don't at all agree with an idea. So it's going to be, yeah, pretty high level, pretty free form, and really just meant to create conversation. And ideally in a way that there's a little bit of structure and feedback for each of these stations. So that's what's going to be organized. The outcomes, education and context, of course, the revised vision statement. So we will be coming back to you with what we heard, what kind of comments we got on the vision statement. And then hopefully, the brainstorm that we have on those flip charts will kind of help give us some fodder for developing those goal statements. So we're going to be kind of coming back to you in November and just workshopping through what we heard at Future Fest, what we've heard through the online survey that is going to unveil the vision statement. So along with Future Fest, we will also have an online survey that essentially just mirrors the same questions. So another kind of online opportunity for folks to review the vision statement and provide feedback on it. So we'll be coming back to talk about all of that in November. Just little snippets. We have an internal planning worksheet about how we organize our our logistics and our materials, and a lot of work that goes into it. Another component of this is, as I mentioned, there's clearly a lot of other planning efforts going on in the city, around things like, TSP, so the transportation system plan, your economic development strategy, housing needs analysis. So there will be also at certain stations, primarily in transportation and infrastructure, there's another firm, DKS Associates, that is doing the city's TSP. They will have additional boards at their station that will actually have a map of some potential transportation improvements. So there'll be kind of like an additional component to the discussion at that station where folks can actually, I think, prioritize potential projects, transportation projects. And then in addition, in the housing and economy station, we will be having folks from a firm that is developing the city's economic development strategy. And they too are preparing some boards to have at that station to kind of have some maybe more nuanced or more in-depth conversations around strategies or priorities for economic development in the city. So there are those two stations that will have this some additional stuff going on that just highlights the concurrent work that's happening that very much feeds into the comprehensive plan, because the policy framework set forth in the TSP hopefully will be just folds directly into the policy framework of the comp plan. The policy framework of the economic development strategy will also be mirrored in the comp plan. So we really want to ensure some consistency across all of those efforts, and then also just share out what we're doing. There's a lot going on, so it's an opportunity for folks to come and talk to Shelley and Kelly and just get a sense of what is happening in Shelley and Kelly. What is happening in terms of planning efforts. So that is the hope. We're looking forward to it. And you know, we hope that you all will attend. We would very, very much appreciate if anybody wanted to help flip chart notes with whoever is the like staff at a station. Always super helpful to have someone that can answer questions, engage in conversation, and then also have someone to help support and like taking notes, and also just like representing the committee, sharing what you know, and also being like more ears than none is always helpful. So that when we come back in November, we are like, we heard so many different things and we can kind of compare notes. So it's about having ears, it's about representing the committee and just kind of representing the work you guys have done. And then, supporting and note taking and just facilitating conversation. So I will take, like, if anybody would like to volunteer to note take, like, let me know now. Doesn't need to be super committal, but it would be really awesome if you guys wanted to have a role if you get sick of note taking, you can do whatever you want. But yeah, I think
What do you type?
so we'll just have flip charts, and we'll have a bunch of markers, and then it's really just as people are talking and as the staff person at that station, or it could even be you, the questions like, what are your big ideas for achieving this vision? People, it's essentially just writing down the ideas, writing down the comments from people. I would say that some people say that there is an art to flip charting, and I plan to, whoever wants to take down notes in the flip charts and kind of man a station, I am gonna have like a little 30-minute like rundown of how to do it, and like just key tips to be thinking about when you're doing that right before the event. So I did just send out an email to the folks, some city staff that are gonna be staffing the booths, to just have them come at 5:30, and then we'll go over like exactly what's expected of them. And then for anybody that wants to flip a chart, I just have like some basic tips about things that make that sort of activity a little bit easier.
That kind of basically what I did at.
Yes, exactly. It's really about making sure that you're listening and like capturing the sentiment in like a succinct way. Sometimes people like to color code things, and it's also listening for things that are like being repeated and just making putting check marks next to things that are being repeated. And then also a really great kind of tip is to always make sure that after you've like written something down on a flip chart, to just confirm with the person, like, did I capture what you were saying to me? Sometimes they'll go on a long rant and then it's our job to be like, okay, what was the key point that I can say? Yeah, what is the one word that I can like write here? That can be like, yes, that's what I meant. So yeah, there's a little bit of that kind of art form.
Were we also planning on programming, options for people to write down, quick snippets to add?
No, so it's just flip charting on flip charts, but then in addition, we will have a comment form. That we kind of do at the beginning, and so they can conversate, if they don't want to talk to anyone, they can also just write their comments down on the comment form. And it is linked so that the comment form goes in the same direction that the stations go.
I was gonna say that if there's, I mean, people don't like to do follow-up stuff, but
Like to do,
follow-up stuff, like if you send out like papers. Oh, yeah, not gonna ever return it. But if you had like,
It's right, rebates.
yeah, if you had like a QR code where it's like, you wanna fill this out right now while you're sitting here and like have people have stations, like fill that or like have different topics where they can enter, I mean, like, I use QR codes, like they're.
so you're saying, I mean, we are gonna have printed comment forms that everyone gets with pens that they will have in their hands.
It has the QR code on it.
Yeah, the
Oh,
QR code links to the project website and the online survey.
Okay.
So that is also but they could do that too. They could write it down, they could also go visit the website and go to the online survey and just write stuff online as well. The hope, there will be like a comment box, so they'll be actually receiving a bunch of things. One is like an overview of the project with the links to the project website. And then the comment form, and they can kind of carry that around, there's lots of tables, people can sit and write. And then they can either drop a comment form off on their way out in the box. I also made an option to just drop it off at City Hall if sometimes people like to bring their stuff home and think about it and then bring it back to City Hall. So there's also that option. And you can also fill it out online.
Yeah. I was more just like, if there's no box to drop it.
He's like, get the door. Did you? You wanna write
Yeah,
that?
and that's also why we have a comment form that is separate from that we have like a one-pager project overview sheet with the QR codes and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's one thing you get to bring home, which is the information about the project and the links to the website, and there's something you give me.
Totally.
So they could be encouraged at each of the stations by either who's moderating it or even writing on the charts. Because some people are just shy and bashful,
Yeah.
and they're never gonna say anything. And to just say, write it down, just if you have a thought that isn't up here that you are uncomfortable sharing or whatever, write it on a piece of paper. We can
exactly.
be anonymous and
Yeah, there's overshares, where you're like, why don't you just submit all of that?
Back in my contacts, like there's definitely a lot of folks that don't really feel like talking or engaging and would rather just write something down and drop it in the comment box.
Assuming I don't have to hold a crabby toddler, I'm hoping the crabby toddler.
Yeah.
Assuming I don't have to hold her with it, so we'll be there.
That would be so awesome. Is there a station that you would be most interested in?
I mean, housing is really interesting, but also because it's interesting, I might be too biased, might be better to have somebody else there.
Okay.
Yeah. Natural.
Cycle house. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's put you down for that. That would be awesome. Thanks for that.
I do appreciate that Clackamas County is, I hope that they do adopt what their input was.
Yeah.
Because this last round was not successful, really. Yeah. Their map didn't update until almost 10 hours later. The fire maps of evacuations was nice. I submitted a lot of feedback. And screenshots, timestamp screenshots. I was like, I'm just.
And I don't care which one, but I can be there to take them.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, and I guess I don't care.
You know, you guys so different. This is an opportunity, if, like, if there's a topic area that like, I would really this.
I can take notes on that.
To hear what people have to say about this one thing,
I plan to be there. I would love to engage more so than note take.
perfect, that's totally fine. Yeah.
What time's it at again? I'm sorry.
It's from 6 to 8:30.
Next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday.
I can make it.
We would love for you to be there.
I can take notes,
Yeah.
but my writing isn't impeccable. It is legible.
Sorry, I
Just
crossed a lot of myself.
large and legible, and remember, you don't have to write everything someone said, it has to be a keyword. But yeah, I think that would be fantastic. I did not.
And if you have any question on how to spell something, there'll be tons of people.
I would just. Is there more that we're going over?
No,
I thought that's like, I don't want it to like flee, something came up. Some of my words. In the, sorry, going right back to the vision statement.
Yeah.
In housing and economy, something just like with a lot of people that I've personally talked to and reached out to. That isn't brought up, it does address like employment and livability as far as. Affordability, but business, like prosperous business district is not it's not encompassed in this part of the statement.
Yeah, we say thriving commercial and industrial districts. But that doesn't, you don't feel like that?
It doesn't speak to me
Yeah.
necessarily. I don't know, is there more?
I'm trying to think,
Yeah.
what's the sentence?
Because like, just talking in commercial districts, you kind of look at the actual commercial districts that is. And I don't think of our Main Street as the commercial district. If that makes any sense to. Like, it doesn't create that small town feel when we're talking about commercial as a generalized term. Cause most of the time you're thinking about, like kind of the whippersnappers building district, not Main Street businesses.
Yeah, so there's commercial districts like the Walgreens and the food, marts, and then there's like,
It's not so smaller.
yeah, absolutely. I think there was actually at one point some language around small local businesses, and then a desire to see that it was like a balance between encouraging small local businesses, but then also recognizing the importance of like larger commercial and industrial districts. But I feel like small and local are some key terms.
I think it was that last time was to think about our downtown, that's something. It's been on my mind a lot.
Yeah.
When you consume like. Yeah. And they're prime spots. Tourism and all of that, and in order to. Thrive, businesses.
Like people independently own the.
Yes.
Oh.
It's the same crew who's owned. For a very long.
Since we're adding additional. One thing on the natural hazard. I volunteer with the Clackamas County Amateur Radio Emergency Services. And all of our training and everything is towards a big one.
Yeah.
Which is not a fire.
Yeah.
It's the earthquake. So I would suggest that since the threat of wildfire and other natural resources,
Certainly.
natural hazards.
Yeah, that actually was a comment that came up from council about talking about earthquakes as well in this. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that back up, because that was something that we were kind of going back and forth on, so it's good to hear that that is.
Because when it happens, they're all coming through saying.
Yeah. Are we on a call?
Hmm?
Yeah, we're due for
No, I mean, Portland more than anybody,
Oh, my
and they're all just gonna be fleeing the city, but they expect all the bridges to be there. You won't be able to get across.
So.
Well, yeah, that's.
I stayed in Arizona for 15 years waiting for the big one to happen.
Yeah, and we'll probably live our lives. So.
And so they rebuilt it, is that what you say, so?
Mhm.
We're also reinforcing the 205 overpass through Oregon's.
Because I was like, you can walk.
Yes. So let's wrap it up. It's Get out of here. Yes. Sandy, future thoughts to talk about, the next CAC meeting will be in November. I was looking at the calendar, we usually do kind of end of November. I think with a holiday, we will likely aim for the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, rather than the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So that would be November 30th. Otherwise, it will be November 8th. Which might be a little short in terms of the turnaround, just a couple things to happen in October. But we will confirm those dates, if you could pencil in November 30th, and then maybe the 8th, but hoping for 30th. Upcoming briefings to City Council and Planning Commission, so we will be going to them in October to essentially share with them this draft vision statement, report back to them on the Future Fest event, kind of what we've heard. So we'll be briefing them in October, very similar to what we did tonight. And then in addition, we will have that natural hazards stakeholder workshop. I think it has been discussed as happening the week of November 14th. If you want to make a little mental note of that, we will be confirming the date of that, as well as like all the invitations and things in the next couple of weeks. So please be on the lookout for that. We will really, CAC members will be a part of those stakeholder workshops, so. Or be, an important part of the participants for that workshop. So that's where we're going, and then after our meeting in November, we are hoping to go back to the planning commission and city council and just kind of acknowledge, accept the vision statement in December before the end of the year, so that when we get back together in January, we are kind of off to the races. We don't have very many CAC meetings left, honestly. There's gonna be a lot of cramming of content in January, March, May of next year, so right. All right, that is it for me. I hope you guys all have a nice evening. Thanks again for making it out.
Before everybody gets away, we need to congratulate Shelley here on your certification.
Oh, yeah.
On AICP,
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah,
what is AICP?
the American Institute of Certified Planners. So in the United States, you don't have to be licensed to be a planner. But there is like a certification program, you take a test, you do this test, a master's degree, a number of years of experience, right, semesters. Yeah, and then you get 4 letters after your last name. It's very cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's.
Are you the person?